On this note page, you'll be learning about both the legislative branch of Virginia government and the executive branch. Our legislative branch is called the General Assembly, and the General Assembly is located in downtown Richmond. This is the building in which they work. It has two parts, the Virginia Senate and the Virginia House of Delegates. Because it has two parts, it is known as being bicameral. That should sound familiar from when you learned about the U.S. Congress. The members of our legislature, the General Assembly, they get their job by being elected by their constituents or their voters. The job of the General Assembly is to make laws for Virginia, and hopefully you'll recognize this process. The first step, a bill has to be introduced into the General Assembly. Second, it gets sent off to a small committee who studies it, and then they vote either to keep it moving or to kill it in the committee. If it survives the committee, if it is voted to keep moving in the committee, it'll then be sent to the floor for debate, where everybody in the General Assembly gets to talk about the bill. If it's after the floor debate, it gets voted on in both parts, the Senate and in the House. The bill has to be approved by both the House of Delegates and the Virginia Senate. And if it gets voted on and approved by both, then the final step, it gets sent to the governor, who will either sign the bill into law or will veto it. It's an identical process to the way the U.S. Congress makes bills into laws. The executive branch of state government is led by a person called the governor. We have Governor Youngkin right here. We don't have a vice governor. We call them lieutenant governor. And she is right here. Her name is Winsome Sears. And then the top lawyer for the state who works in the executive branch is called the Attorney General, and it is Jason Miyares. He's right here. It's the job of the executive branch to enforce the laws that the General Assembly passes. And once a year, the governor is required to give a speech to the General Assembly called the State of the Commonwealth Address. And the governor will ask the General Assembly to pass certain bills during their legislative session. This State of the Commonwealth Address is identical to the president's speech to the Congress that's called the State of the Union. The governor of Virginia has many jobs, just like the U.S. president, and the governor has many titles. For example, one of the titles is chief executive. Another title of the governor is chief of state. There's also commander-in-chief. There's also chief legislator, and there's chief of party. This chart you'll be filling out when you go through the slides. And hopefully you're going to recognize that the titles and jobs of the governor